You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America online, thisweekinamerica.us. By Faith, Isaac by Elsa Henderson cast light on family drama behind Isaac's blessings of his sons. She explores the significance of his tale in her highly acclaimed religious fiction novel, deeply researched, rich, and elaborate in detail. Elsa is the daughter of lifetime Bible teachers and missionaries with the China Inland Mission, later known as the Overseas Missionary Fellowship. She says her knack for writing Bible stories was caught rather than taught. From infancy, Elsa and her siblings learned Bible stories from their mother. She was a master storyteller. She would rather tell than read the stories. She credits her mom for her creativity and her father for the discipline of research and staying within the boundaries of known truth. A retired school teacher, living with her husband in Calgary, Alberta, Elsa Henderson, author of By Faith, Isaac, with us on This Week in America. Elsa, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
It is such an important topic, and looking forward to talking about this. And I mentioned the influences of mom and dad, and I'm thinking, boy, they come through in the book, don't they? The creative aspect because of the fiction aspect of what you're doing. And your dad, it's almost like he was speaking to you about research and staying within certain boundaries. You really are influenced by them to this day when you're writing, aren't you?
I certainly am. I'm so thankful for my parents.
And this amazing story that you're telling, and this all started, I understand, with Hebrews 11:20, and you read it, the verse raised your curiosity, some questions. The book came out of that. Talk about that and why you had questions and wanted to do the research and write the book.
The verse that inspired the title was, by faith, Isaac blessed his sons, Jacob and Esau. And I thought, what this is in Hebrews 11, the faith chapter of fame, Hall of Fame in the Bible. And others in that Hall of Fame are Noah, who built the ark, and Abraham, and Enoch, who walked with God so perfectly that God took him straight to heaven. What's the big deal about saying a blessing over your sons? It just didn't seem like a big thing to me.
And that curiosity started this whole project. And I understand you turned to Genesis and you found some answers there that got you started on this journey.
Yes, I actually started with the story of Jacob. When I was in the church and at a conference, and the conference was challenging us to spend time in God's Word. And at the end of that conference, Mr. Blackaby gave an altar call, and I wanted to go forward, but everything he mentioned in the altar call didn't apply to me. And finally he said, some of you just want to go forward. And that was me. So I went forward, and when I went forward, the words that came out of my heart were, Lord, I won't let you go until you bless me, unless you bless me. I recognized that those words were Jacob's words when he wrestled with God. And so I started my story there.
The book we're talking about is By Faith, Isaac. Elsa Henderson is the author, our guest on This Week in America. Information on the book at elsahendersonbooks.com, also available bookventure.com in the bookstore. You can link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get information on the book. How did you go about deciding to do this fictional retelling of the stories of the patriarchs Abraham and Isaac? How did this idea come about to tell the story, and then talk about the research that you had to do, because you have very vivid details, especially of that time?
I didn't set out to write a book. I set out to spend quality time in God's Word. And when I study the Bible, I take notes. And I had jotted down, I don't know how many pages of notes. I'm not sure how long into this taking time in God's Word that I was, but when I got to researching about the story of Isaac, finding a wife for Isaac, I found that rather than being like notes from a lecture, it was story form. And I thought, what is happening? What does God want to do through this? So I thought I would explore it. And that began my putting it into story form.
It's been described as part Bible history and part family drama. That seems like a good description. Are you okay with that? Does that
Yes.
sort of sum up the story?
I would think so. I love the Old Testament, and I wish that more people would not be intimidated by the Old Testament and would get into it. And I thought, if I can write a story that they can read and enjoy and learn from, maybe they'll get into the Old Testament themselves.
And you do an excellent job of telling the story. The book is by Faith Isaac. Elsa Henderson, our guest on the program. Book available at her website, elsahendersonbooks.com. At the website, you say, "Where faith grows, hope blossoms. Journey with me as we unveil the faith that Isaac inspired in us." Talk a little bit about that and what you hope readers take away from reading this story.
I believe that Isaac's burning desire was to hear God's voice, and that he asked his father questions about hearing his voice, because Abraham had heard God's voice 11 times. And the first half of the book is conversations between father and son as to what Abraham heard. The first time he heard God's voice, God said, "Leave Ur." The second time, Abraham was in Haran, and God said, "Leave your country and your family." And then the third time, Abraham was in Canaan, and God said, "I'm going to give you this land." So all of these led into stories, and Isaac wanted to hear God for himself, but he didn't for a long, long time. He did when he was 13 years old, and Abraham was sacrificing him. That was the last time that God had spoken to Abraham, was to say, "Sacrifice your son." Isaac did not hear that part, but when Abraham actually had the knife drawn, ready to kill his son, God intervened and said, "Abraham, Abraham, don't harm your son." Those were the first words that Isaac ever heard from God, and I'm sure they were a great comfort to him.
Exactly.
To know that he wasn't going to be harmed. And then the second thing that happened, God went on to say, "Now, Abraham, I know that you fear me." And God repeated the promises that he had made to him. And so Isaac heard those promises, and I believe that he then also by faith believed that those promises that God had made to Abraham, they all applied to him.
I mentioned in the beginning, this began with your curiosity, with your questions. After doing the research for the book, My Faith Isaac, did you get those questions answered? Did you learn something through this process of writing the book?
I believe that I did learn why the Bible said, by faith Isaac blessed his sons Jacob and Esau. It took faith to speak the blessings, the blessing that he gave to Jacob and the blessing that he gave to Esau. And that's in the second half of the book. And I don't know if I should tell you the answer.
Maybe we'll tease people. They can go find get the information in the book. It is so well written. The book is My Faith Isaac. Elsa Henderson is our guest in the program, the author, and the book is available at our website, elsahendersonbooks.com. But there are answers. This is not only a very good story, well told, but there are answers that will help people throughout as they struggle with things in their own lives.
Yes, certainly Abraham struggled with faith. He had a failure of faith when he allowed society to contaminate his faith. At the age 75, God had given him promises that he was going to be a powerful nation, and that out of him would come a nation that would bless the whole world. And 10 years later, Abraham still didn't have a child. So how could that happen? Well, they lived in a society in which rich men, if the wife was barren, would use a surrogate and take one of their servants and have a child by that servant girl. And then the father would be legally the father of this child, but the wife of that rich man would be legally the mother of the child. And so this is what Abraham and Sarah did. They decided they were going to help God fulfill his promises. And Sarah said, "Here's Hagar. Go sleep with her, Abraham, and give me a son."
The book is by Faith Isaac. Elsa Henderson, our guest on the program, the author of the book. How long did it take to put this book together? I would think it would take a while in the research, extensive research that you did.
Yes, I did spend a lot of time in research. The book was 7 years from beginning to completion, but I would say about 2 years of that I didn't work on the book because I had other writing things to do.
You have another book that's available at the website, Wise Men Seek Him, a Christmas Story. Obviously, when you read something or hear something, you have questions. Questions came out of sort of the impetus for that book as well. Just talk a little bit about your writing and what you like to do, because you really answer questions that other people have as well, those that are curious just like you.
The Wise Men Seek Him came out of an Advent meditation. Each year I like to study a different aspect of the Christmas story. And this comes from my mother. She would one year tell a story from the perspective of the shepherds, and one from the perspective of Mary and Joseph, and one from the perspective of Zachariah and Elizabeth. And I was studying wise men, and I try to picture it. And if it were a movie, I would have to be able to see the characters, and I would have to be able to see them going from place to place. And that kind of picturing it in your mind raises questions. When do you cue someone right and left? And
exactly.
Say.
You know, in the book description, I can see that as well, as it's like, okay, this is what is said to have happened. How could this happen? So you ask that question, and then you answer it. That book is called Wise Men Seek Him, a Christmas Story. A couple minutes left in our discussion here. You have something that's very interesting and really gets you thinking on the website. You say, faith is seeing light with your heart when all your eyes see is darkness. That's such a powerful message. Talk about the role of faith and why sometimes it's very difficult to sustain faith.
Faith and obedience go hand in hand. It's easy to believe something or to say you believe something, but to actually have faith means that you don't just believe in your head, but you act on it. And we see that happening with Abraham. God told him to leave Ur, and he acted on it. God told him he would have a family, he would have children, and would eventually have many descendants. And God and Abraham walked in obedience step by step.
The book By Faith, Isaac, one of the reviews said the story is one that most of us can relate to. And I'm thinking, even though it wasn't written in these times, there are elements of this that will help us through our lives, aren't there?
There certainly are. Um,
What kind of response are you getting as the book is read, and feedback are you getting? And I'm assuming that you're able to answer questions and provide guidance for a number of people.
I I think that, like you made a few quotes from my book, and I think that God, when you pour yourself into God's word, he pours himself back into you. And I think he gave me those words. Those aren't mine. And I think that's what all of us need to do is just to pour ourselves into God's word and let God do what he wants to do through us. And then that flows out to whatever you say to other people, whatever advice you give.
It's interesting, as we too rapidly ran out of time on the program today in talking about the beginning of this project. It is almost like divine inspiration, isn't it? That you had these questions planted and you followed through with the book, and you're able to help a lot of people in the process. It's like this was sort of destiny for you.
Yes, I believe that God has a plan for each person, and if we walk in obedience to him, he will unfold that plan. And for me, part of that plan was to write a book that would inspire others and that would bless others.
Well, you've accomplished that with the book By Faith, Isaac. Elsa Henderson is the author, our guest on This Week in America. Book available at elsahendersonbooks.com. You'll find it as well at bookventure.com in the bookstore, all the places where books are sold. And you can link on directly to Elsa's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Information on her other book, Wise Men Seek Him, A Christmas Story, available at her website as well. Elsa, it has been fun having you on the program. Very enjoyable. Thank you for being with us on the program today.
Thank you very much. With your permission, I would like to read the preface to my book.
Oh, please do.
I will not let you go unless you bless me. Those were the words that came to me as I stood at the front of the church. It was February 2006. I was attending a Blackaby conference at Center Street Church, in which Richard Blackaby and his father Henry had challenged us to spend quality time in God's Word. When Richard Blackaby gave the altar call, I wanted to go forward, but none of the reasons he listed applied to me. Finally, he said, "Some of you want to go forward, but you don't know why." That was me. I went. "I will not let you go unless you bless me," I told the Lord. That was my heart's desire, to hang on to God until he blessed me. I resolved to spend quality time in God's Word. The next morning, I woke an hour and a half earlier than usual and got up to study God's Word before breakfast, a pattern I have followed ever since. I began my study with the story of Jacob wrestling with God in Genesis 32, taking notes as I studied, and God blessed me. I learned so much. In time, my notes began to come out in story form. What's this? I wondered. If God is teaching me this way, I'll pursue it. My study led me to Hebrews 11:20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. What? Isaac made it into the Bible's great faith hall of fame for merely speaking a blessing? How much faith does it take to do that? How does blessing his sons rank with Noah's building the ark or Abraham's leaving the country? By faith, Isaac became the title of my story even before I knew the answer to the question. In May 2006, I jumped at the opportunity to travel to Israel with a tour group led by Pastor Henry Shore. Being in Israel gave me a vivid visual perspective of the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and enabled me to fill in details of the Bible story I was writing. After the Israel trip, I went back to writing By Faith Isaac. Some days I surrounded myself with reference books, Bible, concordance, Bible dictionary, commentary. Sometimes I just sat at the computer with my Bible open, and I typed as I imagined the story unfolding. Sometimes I had to stop writing the story in order to research something on the internet. Through the whole writing process, God blessed me. I would like to share these blessings by reading my book. I would like you to share these blessings by reading my book. I also challenge you to spend quality time in God's Word. I challenge you also to hang on to God with a vice-like grip, as Jacob did, and say, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he will. Believe me, he will.
Excellent job, and I can tell that you've got your mother's ability to tell a story with that as well. You want me to read the book, you make me want to read the book over again. That was very well done. The book is just excellent. By Faith Isaac. Elsa Henderson, our guest on the program. Book available at elsahendersonbooks.com. Elsa, once again, thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. And God bless you.
You're listening to This Week in America online, thisweekinamerica.us.